All right, beauties. I'm going to take you through a bunch of pregnancy modifications that mean that you have a few different options when you're participating in any of the Forrest Yoga practices in this membership. I would suggest watching this before you move into a practice, so you've got a couple of things in your mind that you can do when there's other things that are coming up that obviously aren't feasible for you. What I really want you to know is that each pregnancy is different in the way that some people gravitate towards more yin practices, other people want really yang. So my ultimate advice is to get very good at feeling into what is actually needed in your own body, and then all this other stuff that I offer is kind of then additional to you, rather than it being the answer for your practice, because really only you know. So one thing we say in Forrest Yoga is no abs, and that is just basically because your belly is busy making a baby and it's doing other things. So we encourage not to do any ab work during pregnancy. What you can do though is a practice called abless with a roll, which means that you're still using the roll, but you get your inner thighs engaged, which is really helpful for the support of your spine. I'll take you through that first. So you come down onto your back and you have the roll in between your legs. So your legs can be up, or you can have your feet down. And then chin tuck, neck long, chest wide, ribs down. And then inhale into your side ribs, so get your breath moving real deep as you can. Exhale, squeeze the roll. Release, inhale through side ribs. And again, exhale, squeeze the roll. So that's one thing you can do, and there's no limit to the amount of rounds you do that, whilst the rest of the class is going through whatever abdominals they are going through on that day. The other thing pregnant women like to do is a few different variations of hip openers in supported bridge, so you're over a block. I don't like these cork blocks, but it's the only thing I've got right now. I would suggest a softer one, but I'll leave that up to you. Again, I'll take you through a few different options. You can just watch these, or you can watch and then pause and do them, or whatever works. So I'm up on the highest height of the block here. Again, just go as high as you can. And I'm going to take you through a whole number of options. So you can just do one of these, or you can do all of them at the start of a class. It doesn't really matter. We start by toe heeling your right foot into the midline 2 inches. Press through your right heel and inhale your left leg straight up. So unlike a yin practice, you have your tailbone curled a little so that your butt muscles are active. And then you can even start, if there's space, to start to reach your leg towards your chest. And I would say stay here for about 5 breaths. If you want to stay longer, go for it. And then the next option is ankle over thigh. So you've got your left ankle over your right thigh. I personally like to use my left hand to kind of guide my left thigh away from my pelvis. You can have a look up at the screen and see that action. Just moving your thigh bone away from your hip joint and starting to create space. A lot of pregnant mummies tell me this feels amazing, but again, it's an exploration of what it feels for you. And as well, it will depend on the trimester you're in, so it will change. And then the other alternative is half Virasana. So you can actually have the top of your left foot flat like so. Or you can bring the base of your foot flat and just kind of reaching your heel back towards your butt. So it just depends on where you're at with that. Just go with what's working in your leg. But again, there's a little bit of a tuck of your tailbone just to keep your butt engaged so you're not sagging onto the block. And lifting up through your upper back, so upper back lifts away from the floor. And again, just that feeling of opening the whole front line of your body, which, you know, feels great for me. And I believe also for lots of pregnant women that come to class, they seem to love this too. So you do 5 breaths in each of those versions. And then obviously you'd repeat on the other side, and then just lift your pelvis off the block, move the block away. And when you come down your upper, mid, and your lower back. So that's another thing that you can actually do while the rest of the class is doing ab work. It just helps to prepare you in the same way that we would in abs, except we're not using your ab muscles. So that's good. The other thing that you can do in replace of abs is a whole bunch of side openers. So seated side bend, one leg straight. You bring your other foot in towards your inner thigh. And then you might start with your arm over like so. So you do this for 5 or so breaths. And then maybe you'd come into a half bind for another 5 breaths. And then maybe a neck release for another 5 breaths. And then using your arm to bring your body up, so just keeping your neck relaxed. Easy, easy, easy. So there's a whole bunch of stuff that you can do during abdominals. I would start always with a bit of inner thigh activation, just to get that area going, because for most of us it's not that active. And then move into whatever then your body's kind of feeling, and it's great. It gives you guys the chance to develop your own personal pregnancy practice. And they're all safe, what I've given you there. So the other thing that will happen at some point in your pregnancy, there will be no more going onto your belly. And obviously in Forrest, we do a lot of lowering from plank into cobra or boat or any of those kind of back bending options. What I would suggest is when we come from plank, like so, you put your knees down, and then you might even do like a little mini push-up. So it doesn't have to be a lot, because there'll be a lot of extra weight. And then come up into a camel, rather than being on your belly. So super simple modification, but it's doing the exact same thing. Opening up your chest, your upper back. It feels really nice to again get that opening through the front of your body. That is also leading to my next point. So there's a couple of poses in Forrest where we're like camel on the wall, for example. Pregnant people, you can still do this, but just put a block on your pubic bone and go from there. So then you've got space for your baby. Okay, it's really nice. One final thing, and honestly, it's just common sense really, but like, let's just talk about it anyway. So anything that may squash your baby is not a great idea. anything that opens the area is a good idea. So say for example, I'm cueing a twisting lunge and the rest of the class is going this way. So you're twisting to squash the baby. You guys would go this way. So you're twisting to open the baby. And that rule pretty much, so I'll just show you from the other side so you can see. So this is what you'd look like. Okay. And that pretty much applies to every single twist. And then, you know, from there, there's questions about inversions, there's questions about back bends, there's questions about all those things. There is nothing to say that you cannot invert in the Forrest Yoga system whilst you're pregnant. And so I would say it is to your discretion in terms of what feels good and whether you know, like, that's something you've been practicing before. Like if it was me, I'd say if you are someone that practices inversions regardless and suddenly you're pregnant, inversions then are just a thing of yours anyway. I don't feel like that's a problem. But again, you know, like I'm not able to say for sure, and I would suggest it being a personal dialogue that you have with yourself and your baby. One last thing that's really nice to do that Anna taught me in one of my trainings was in Shavasana to have one hand on your belly and one hand on your heart, and to move the energy from your heart down to your baby and nourishing your baby with all the good energy that comes from Shavasana. I love that. It's one of my favourite things. All right, my loves, I really hope that's helpful. If you have any questions, you know where I am.